Coming up on Arirang News, Chinese President Xi Jinping reaffirms his support for South Korea's peace initiative on the Korean Peninsula, telling President Moon that he supports dialogue between the two Koreas themselves and between North Korea and the U.S. South Korea reports a rise in cases of COVID-19, a spike of more than 200 today, linked again mainly to a Christian missionary group and its training facilities. And data show this past year, South Korea had the fewest births for any November on record. This means for 2020 as a whole, the country will have had fewer than 300,000 births for the first time on record. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea has reported a spike in cases of COVID-19. On Wednesday, the country reported 559 new cases, which is 200 more than the day before. This was due in large part to cases at unregistered training centers for Christian missionaries. Tomorrow, the government's going to be updating its plans for vaccines. Kim Yeon-sung reports.
A spike in daily coronavirus cases. South Korea reported 559 new coronavirus patients, 516 of which were local infections. For the first time in 10 days, the number of daily infections reached over 500, with the daily tally jumping by 210 cases in a single day. The surge was largely due to a mass outbreak traced back to a missionary school in Daejeon, which has reported a total of 318 linked cases. The infection spread to TCS International School in Gwangju, run by the same missionary group. Here, 109 cases were reported on Wednesday.
Cluster infections have been confirmed in Gwangju in unauthorized facilities belonging to the IM missionary group. As related facilities are located across the country, other areas are too in danger. I repeat, the key to prevention is speed.
The health minister's chief secretary has also tested positive for COVID-19, forcing the minister to self-isolate.
Yesterday, the Minister of Health and Welfare was tested for the virus as he had come into close contact with the infected employee. The test results came out negative and he is currently in self-isolation.
Meanwhile, the South Korean government will announce its detailed plans for COVID-19 vaccines tomorrow afternoon. The government has already said it intends to reach herd immunity by this November and that 70% of the population will receive at least their first shot by September. The first batch of vaccines will come in early next month, with frontline healthcare workers and seniors in care homes getting their jabs first. In tomorrow's briefing, the government will go into further detail about when and how the vaccines will be administered and how the government plans to react in the case of side effects. Kim Yeon-sung, Arirang News.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has reaffirmed Beijing's support for South Korea's peace initiative on the Korean Peninsula. In phone talks with President Moon Jae-in on Tuesday night, the two leaders also agreed to make efforts to hold a trilateral summit with Japan at an early date. Kim Min-ji reports.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has expressed support for President Moon Jae-in's efforts to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, saying that it's in line with the common interest of China and South Korea. The top office said the remarks were made during a 40-minute phone conversation between the two leaders late on Tuesday. President Moon asked Beijing to play a constructive role in dealing with pending issues. To this, President Xi said he supports dialogue between North Korea and the U.S., as well as between the two Koreas, and that he values Seoul's role in finding a political solution. Xi described the situation on the peninsula as generally stable. Moon also expressed hope for the two sides to make efforts to hold a trilateral summit involving Japan, which was postponed last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Xi said he will cooperate with South Korea so that the summit can happen at an early date. Also on the table was the issue of joining the 11-member Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP, which the U.S. is widely expected to join under the Joe Biden presidency. It evolved from the Trans-Pacific Partnership led by the Obama administration, but Washington later withdrew from the pact under the Trump leadership. The two leaders also agreed to work together to arrange Xi's visit to South Korea when the COVID-19 situation eases. Seoul and Beijing have been seeking a visit since last year, but it is yet to happen due to the pandemic. And with 2022 marking 30 years since Seoul and Beijing established diplomatic ties, the two sides agreed to strengthen cooperation and draw up a blueprint for the next 3 decades. Tuesday's phone talks come amid geopolitical tensions between China and the U.S. A senior Blue House official says the top office will arrange phone talks between Moon and Biden as soon as possible to congratulate him over his inauguration. The official also brushed off any speculation regarding the order of talks, saying that the phone call with Xi was arranged to mark the new year before Biden took office, and that the respective talks are different in nature. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And President Moon is going to take part in his first bilateral summit of the year tomorrow, meeting virtually with the president of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev. South Korea and Uzbekistan have been continuously expanding the scope of their cooperation in sectors ranging from energy to the digital industry. In the summit, President Moon will review the achievements of his new northern policy and will be negotiating ways to work with Uzbekistan in achieving an economic recovery and post-pandemic economic takeoff. A spokesperson said in a press briefing on Wednesday that the Blue House hopes the summit not only serves to expand the strategic partner relationship between the two countries, but that it also gets South Korea's new northern policy fully underway. Data show this past year, South Korea had the fewest births for any November on record. Births have been outnumbered by deaths for more than a year now, and for 2020 as a whole, for the first time, the number of babies born will have fallen below 300,000 for the first time. Kim Jae-hee has the details.
The number of births in South Korea in November last year was the lowest on record for the month. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, just 20,085 babies were born in November, down 15.3% on year. This marks the sharpest on-year fall for November since 2001, when the figure fell 18.4%. At the same time, the number of deaths in November was up 1% on year to more than 25,600. South Korea's births have been falling on year for 60 consecutive months, and the number of deaths has outnumbered births for 13 months in a row. There were fewer than 254,000 childbirths in the first 11 months of last year, down 9.8% compared to the same period the previous year. Even with December's numbers, the country will most likely have less than 300,000 births over a whole year for the first time. Statistics Korea says the current trend has little to do with the impact of COVID-19, which is only just starting to show in childbirth figures.
The number of births has been on a decreasing trend since 1970. The number of marriages has been falling for 8 years now, and marriage age is being pushed back, resulting in fewer second and third children. The effects of the pandemic are beginning to show as well. With 10 months of pregnancy, the epidemic had little impact up until October, but we believe it's made the fall in November steeper.
The number of marriages in November was also down 11.3% on year to less than 18,200, hitting the lowest for the month since records began in 1981. To tackle the population problem, the South Korean government will launch a third pan-governmental task force next month. The task force will come up with detailed policies in the second quarter of this year, aimed at preemptively responding to the shrinking population, regional population loss, and a super-aged society. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
If you're looking to exchange hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of Korean coins at once for banknotes, the Bank of Korea will be offering a new service next month that you can reserve online. The central bank says this is due to growing demand to exchange coins in bulk and difficulties at retail bank branches of providing the service effectively. To take advantage of the service, you need to have 1 million won worth of 500 won coins, that's a little under $1,000, or for the smallest circulated coin, 10 won, about 1 US penny, you need to have 5,000 of them. From April 1st, the BOK service will be the only way to exchange coins in these large amounts. The government has rolled out plans to boost the K-beauty industry by creating a comprehensive system to support beauty companies from the development stage to exporting globally. South Korea will aim to help at least 7 local cosmetic companies reach the global top 100 by 2024 and create 90,000 jobs in the process. and to help them reach the global market. It also aims to establish a database platform of information such as the skin and hair types of customers in different countries by 2025. The government will also establish K-beauty schools to train over 8,000 professionals every year specializing in skin and hair. Last year, despite the pandemic, the Korean cosmetics industry recorded $7.5 billion in exports. Seoul is a city full of culture and history, on display in museums, performance halls, and even along the streets. But with people stuck at home these days, the city's planning to introduce these cultural assets on social media. To check them out, find Seoul City's accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Starting next Wednesday, you can swipe through pictures and descriptions of 3 sites: the former Russian legation, Yanghwa Naru Ferry, and Jamdubong Peak, and Sungdong Church. They'll be uploading new sites every month. The goal is to draw more attention to Seoul's cultural assets and help people understand the city's history. And time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon. For that, I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Jun-seok, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, good to have you back on.
Happy to be here.
Well, stocks in New York closed lower overnight. Investors seeming to take a breather after these big gains and ahead of this year's first meeting of the Fed's Open Markets Committee. Professor, tell us more about the story in the markets overseas and here in Korea.
Okay, well, as you mentioned, the U.S. markets were mixed on Monday, but it fell slightly on Tuesday. The analysts say that they're waiting for earnings report, especially for the large tech companies. Tesla, Apple, Facebook all have earning reports coming out on Wednesday, U.S. time. The earnings have been baked into the market. They pretty much expect what the earnings are going to be, but the analysts and investors are interested in what the outlook of these firms look like. Now, also, there has been a lot of press. It doesn't affect the market all that much, but it's such an unusual case that it is earning a lot of news. Individual investors are beating hedge funds, sorting certain stocks. The one that is coming up as an example most often is GameStop, which is a video and computer game seller chain store located in malls. And the hedge funds have been shorting this stock because GameStop had problems even before the coronavirus, but after the coronavirus, they have been dropping like a rock. But through chat rooms in Reddit, individual retail investors have organized to beat the hedge funds. And they've been purchasing, these individual investors have been purchasing these bonds. Stock price rose by 680% in January, 92.7% in just one day, Tuesday. And because of these investors raising the price of stocks, the short-selling hedge funds are said to have lost $5 billion. Same thing seems to be happening with U.S. theater chain AMC as well. So it shows what the power of individual investors can be like, perhaps similar to Donghakemi in Korea. European market up and down this week. It's been up on Tuesday because of some major mergers were announced. Asian markets were also up and down from Monday to Wednesday. Everybody seems to be waiting to see what the FOMC and the earning reports are going to be like. Kospi was down yesterday and today after hitting a record high on Monday. Kosdaq, after missing 1,000 slightly on Monday, it was down Tuesday and Wednesday as well. It seems to be a profit-taking move by institutions and foreigners because individuals bought on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Well, now the IMF is forecasting Korea's economy to grow this year by more than 3%. It's calling for 5% growth for the world as a whole now. Here at the start of 2021, there are a lot of uncertainties, to say the least. What do you make of this forecast, and what are some risks we should be watching?
Okay, well, the global economy was, according to IMF, down 3.5% in 2020, but they expect it to be up by 5.5% in 2021, 4.2% in 2022. But the strength of recovery will vary significantly between countries, and IMF points out 3 questions which will affect global growth. First is, how will distancing affect growth in each country? Second, how will vaccination roll out in each country? And third, how will financial conditions and commodity prices evolve for the next year? And those are the three big questions which will affect the growth rate, actual growth rate for the world. And as with last year, right now I think the global estimates as well as national estimates are a guessing game because it so much depends on the coronavirus. For Korea, the IMF estimate for 2020 was minus 1.1%, which is only a slight difference from the number that was officially announced yesterday by BOK, which was minus 1.0%. They estimate Korean growth to be 3.1% in 2021, which is slightly lower than the government estimate of 3.2, but slightly higher than the BOK estimate of 3.0. This is among the lowest growth among OECD countries because, well, Korea didn't fall that much this year, so it will not rise that much next year. And while the IMF does not give very detailed analysis of Korea, it'll probably depend on global recovery and how much Korean exports will grow.
Got it. All right, we're up against the clock. We'll have to leave it there for today, Professor. Thanks so much for sharing your insights today, as always.
Thank you.
And that does it for this newscast. Thank you for watching.